Most gardeners completely misunderstand what wood ash does for the soil, and the result is, well, weak, shallow roots and wasted potential. People spread it everywhere without thinking, hoping it's some miracle fertilizer, but all they get is soil that's either too alkaline or too nutrient imbalanced to actually grow strong plants. I've spent years testing this in my backyard raised beds, small-scale food plots, and even in hydroponic setups. And the truth is, when used properly, wood ash isn't just a supplement, it's a root growth amplifier. And if you're serious about growing food that thrives, ignoring this is a mistake you can't afford. By the way, if you want more no-nonsense gardening strategies that actually produce results, make sure you hit subscribe because we dive into this level of detail in every video. You don't need more fertilizer, you need the right balance of minerals. The first mistake I see is gardeners thinking more fertilizer equals more growth. It doesn't. When you throw nitrogen-heavy fertilizer at a bed that's low in potassium and calcium, the top growth looks okay for a while, but the roots stay weak and shallow. Wood ash is an incredibly concentrated source of potassium, calcium, and trace minerals that most soils are deficient in. And those are the nutrients that directly affect root strength and overall plant resilience. In my raised beds, I use about half a cup of wood ash per square foot before planting, worked lightly into the top 2 inches of soil. Now that might sound like a lot if you're used to tossing in a tablespoon here and there, but this level actually corrects deficiencies without raising pH dangerously high. If your soil test shows it's already alkaline, you can still use wood ash, but cut it down to a quarter cup per square foot and mix it well with compost or organic matter. This is not a top-dressing gimmick. Incorporation matters. I've watched gardeners sprinkle ash over their beds like it's magic dust and then wonder why nothing happens. Wood ash works best when it's incorporated into the soil. Simply layering it on top leaves it vulnerable to washing away in heavy rain, and it won't reach the root zone where it's actually needed. In practice, I mix it into the top 2 to 3 inches of soil, along with compost or aged manure. In raised beds, I actually shovel a layer of compost, sprinkle the wood ash, then lightly fork it together before planting. In hydroponic systems, I've had success by first dissolving small amounts in water, about 1 teaspoon per gallon, and using it in moderation with plants that tolerate higher pH, like tomatoes and peppers. The key is always moderation and careful integration, because wood ash is highly alkaline. Too much at once can shut down nutrient uptake. Don't overthink timing. Use it when you're prepping beds. Wood ash doesn't need to be applied mid-season for most crops. It's most effective when the soil is still loose and before you plant. I schedule mine when I'm prepping spring beds or refreshing fall plots. I'll spread half a cup per square foot, mix it in with compost and organic matter, and let the soil sit for at least a week before planting. This short wait allows the ash to start reacting with moisture and soil components, stabilizing pH and making potassium and calcium more available to the plants. Trying to sprinkle it over established plants can work for a mild boost, but the effect is limited and inconsistent. Your goal is to give roots the environment they need to develop deep and strong from day one. You can actually measure the difference in roots. One of the reasons I swear by wood ash is that I've dug into beds before and after application multiple times. Roots in ash-treated beds are thicker, more fibrous, and go deeper than in untreated areas. For example, in one experiment with carrots, the ash-enhanced section had roots that were easily 20 to 30% longer and significantly less forked than the control section. Tomatoes in raised beds treated with wood ash consistently develop stronger early root systems, which translates to better drought tolerance and higher fruit set later in the season. In hydroponics, adding small measured amounts of dissolved ash improved root branching noticeably without causing nutrient lockout, but I always balance it with a strong base nutrient solution to avoid pushing pH too high. Know which crops love it and which don't. Wood ash isn't universally perfect. Leafy greens like spinach and lettuce can suffer if you apply too much, because their growth is more sensitive to pH swings. Root crops and fruiting plants, carrots, beets, potatoes, tomatoes, peppers, respond incredibly well. I also use it around berry bushes and fruit trees with excellent results, but I keep the application lighter, around a quarter cup per square foot, and work it in well. Knowing which crops tolerate or thrive on ash is key to avoiding problems. If you scatter it blindly across a mixed bed, you'll end up with uneven growth and some disappointed plants. It works even in small-scale setups and hydroponics. People assume ash is just for big gardens, but that's not true. I've experimented in small raised beds, 4 by 8 feet, and just a couple of handfuls, mixed into the compost layer, made a noticeable difference. In hydroponics, it's trickier, but not impossible. Dissolving tiny amounts in water, as I mentioned earlier, can provide potassium and calcium without overwhelming the system. I always measure carefully, and if I'm running a closed-loop system, I balance it with a mild acid like phosphoric acid to keep pH stable. It's not complicated once you understand the chemistry, but guessing will cost you. The biggest mistake is ignoring soil testing. Even with all this, the biggest mistake gardeners make is applying ash blindly. You don't want to over-alkalize your soil. I always do a simple pH test and nutrient test before adding ash because its effects are powerful. On a neutral or slightly acidic soil, half a cup per square foot works well. On already alkaline soil, you scale back or mix in more organic matter to buffer it. Skipping this step can turn your best intentions into nutrient problems that take months to correct. Consistency beats over-application every time. I see gardeners get excited and dump ash repeatedly, thinking more is better. That just pushes pH too high and can lock out essential micronutrients like iron and manganese. The trick is small, consistent doses during bed prep, combined with regular compost additions. Over several seasons, you'll see cumulative benefits: deeper roots, better drought tolerance, higher yields, and soil that stays friable instead of hardening. In hydroponics, this principle is just as true. Small, controlled additions outperform large doses every time. Practical takeaways you can start this season. If you want results this season, start by testing your soil. Measure pH and note deficiencies. Prep your beds by mixing compost or aged manure. Then incorporate the right amount of wood ash. Half a cup per square foot is a good starting point for most beds. Work it into the top few inches of soil, let it sit for a week, and plant your crops. For hydroponics, dissolve 1 teaspoon per gallon of water and add in moderation, balancing with the rest of your nutrient solution. Pay attention to which crops are sensitive and which thrive. Keep a journal of results. It's amazing how quickly you'll notice differences in root density and plant vigor. By now, you should be able to see why wood ash is far more than a backyard experiment. It's a tool to strengthen roots, balance nutrients, and ultimately grow plants that are resilient, productive, and healthy. If you've never incorporated it systematically, give it a season or two, and you'll be impressed by how much stronger your crops grow compared to untreated beds. If you found this practical and want more strategies that actually make your garden perform like a professional's, subscribe to the channel now. Share this video with your gardening friends too. The more people applying this knowledge correctly, the better our collective gardens will be. Strong roots aren't just about plants. They're about growing food that feeds your family and your community reliably.